how much you know about engineering careers. So if I bore you to death, just skip it. Let's skip ahead. Hi. I'm Calen. Peter, nice to meet you. I got into engineering because of the math, pretty much because of the math side of things, and I was really blessed to grow up in a college town. I grew up in Hanover, New Hampshire, where Dartmouth College is a huge Corps of Engineers plant there, and got into the whole building things and realized that I rebuilt my first car engine when I was 14 years old, and just said, okay, this geeky stuff is really good. I'm actually not a math and science genius. I did pretty well in high school. I'm sort of a BC student in college, but I absolutely love the problem solving and the engineering, and also the team. Engineering is very much a team sport. My company does structural, mechanical, electrical engineering, and plumbing, and that type of stuff. We'll generally work for an architect, and we'll do all those kind of things underneath. And without a good team, you have nothing. If you have an architect who's...
You come up with the solutions from the drawing.
That's right. And so it brought some of the things we do. And socially, there's a lot more social stuff than you would think in an engineering career. In other words, this whole book here, we got down at the MoMA down in New York City, had a big, huge thing on prefabricated housing. And that's really something that engineers and architects have solved, many of the prefabricated housing problems over the years. It was a wonderful exhibit. With that, let me offer up, also come to high schools all over the state to do what it's called the Mousetrap Boat Race. And if I could just take a couple minutes and describe to you, and I'm more than willing to come to any school that would like to extend an invitation. You basically give the students, you break them off into pairs, which gets the team aspect going. You give them 2 pieces of paper, a mousetrap, and a roll of tape. And while they're working, they have to build a boat. While they're working, you set down a little 2x4 platform, put some poly in it, and you fill it with water. And after a certain amount of time, because every project has a deadline, the team has to come up with a craft. And then you set the craft in the water and you're allowed to blow it. Usually have a fan, so it's an automated blowing system. And whichever one reaches the far side, that team wins. The neat part about the mousetrap is that it'll float, so nobody really loses. Nobody's boat actually sinks. Some of them are very slow, but none of them actually sink. And it sort of simulates an engineering problem. You have a goal of getting the mousetrap to the other side of the lake. You have a certain amount of time and a certain budget of materials. It's a great learning. And then just prior to that, you educate them on... I'm a civil engineer, so we do transportation, structures, geotechnical, and environmental engineering. And you give them a little sort of a primer, if you will, on what kind of careers those offer. So, I'm going quite fast because I know they have only a certain amount of time. Let me stop there and ask if there's any questions.
Totally agree with you on the taking a sort of an elevated problem situation and having kids kind of get their arms around trying to do that in a competitive environment. Isn't heard either. Some years ago when I was out in Blue Hill, we participated in that sailboat design contest that they did. One of the oil companies, I think, had a big America's Cup racer, and so after that, and it was such fun for the kids and a parent volunteer to come in and do that. So I'd love to see us do much more of that in the schools, and we currently do.
If there are math or science teachers that would like to come in, I'm
absolutely
happy to do that. Peter, I'm not sure what you do.
I actually do professional development related to mathematics and technology integration and education research work, more or less.
Where are you located?
Education Development Center, which is a nonprofit. It's actually a global nonprofit, so we have an office in Gardner and headquartered in Newton, Mass.
Oh, wow. Very nice. Just would like to hook up with you. The other thing that's neat is I usually bring a set of slides. Is when you're driving on a highway and you see a big rock cut, like this time of year, all the ice, the water's coming, making these big ice crystals. And what I do is I take Photoshops and I fill it back into what it was before the civil engineers got there and drove a highway through it and made these big cuts and showed the students, okay, this is before engineers got there, and then the next slide is obviously the road, with the road going through the big rock cut. And I do that for almost every field, whether it's a building, road design, an airport, or an earth cut for a geotechnical solution. Sort of try to get them to realize how they affect their surroundings. Because every road was designed by engineers. Some of Maine roads aren't designed by engineers.
Yeah.
They're just paved carriage trails, darn it.
Right.
Yeah, if there's anything I can do in the school districts that I'd love to come out and get in front of the students.
Yeah. No, we'll call you definitely.
Yeah, please.
One of the things. This would be an interesting story.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
Reverse engineering. But one of the things that seems to me critical at this point in time is giving more of our kids who would not aspire necessarily to either post-secondary education in general or certainly going into a STEM field, is to give them real-life examples of people who are doing the work and explaining it to them, and unpacking it, and talking about the skill sets, and just mentoring them.
Yeah.
I had an experience to go out to Seattle over Thanksgiving break and just happened to be visiting a family that was 3 generations of engineers, and I was trying to think in my own mind, so you compensate for the family culture, the sort of mentoring and the aspirations that go along with, a family that you can just see how they learn from each other and aspire in similar ways. We got nobody, virtually nobody in our towns that have that kind of family culture. And so we got to do a lot more in the schools to compensate for that.
I was actually hoping I could get with the high school guidance counselors to say, for anybody who would want to come in, students who want to come in to say, because I flunked freshman physics in college, and they actually said maybe a career in engineering isn't for you. And I was like, are you kidding? And I worked real hard to get there, but it's really wonderful.
That'd be a great story to tell.
Yeah. So, take care. How did I do?